Imagine you're at the top of your game. You're successful. You've won all kinds of awards. You are highly respected. But yet inside, you don't feel as though you're enough. You feel as though your success is because you're lucky. And you are afraid everybody else is going to find out you're not exactly how you appear to be. Well, if that's how you feel from time to time, guess what? You may be suffering with the imposter syndrome. In this episode, episode 3, I'm going to give you a valuable tool that will help you fight those feelings. This tool will help you combat any limiting beliefs and negative self talk you have about yourself. Hi, everybody. I'm Constance Howard. If you're joining me for the first time, welcome. I'm an executive coach on a mission to help women gain unstoppable confidence. Too often, I felt all like I just described, like I wasn't enough, that my success was because of luck. And I was afraid everybody around me was going to find out that I wasn't what I said I was. I was, in fact, a fraud or an imposter. And so I created these 3 episodes to help you identify what the imposter syndrome is, some of the behaviors associated with the imposter syndrome, and now this episode where I'm going to talk about this tool that will help you fight the imposter syndrome. But before we get started, please hit the subscribe button and click the bell so you'll be notified when any new videos are posted. I appreciate your support. Okay, let's get started. Let me recap for you very quickly. Because if you haven't seen episode 1 and episode 2, I want you to go back and look at those because they create the foundation and each one leads to the next. So I want you to go back and get the full information from each of the segments. Because I'm not going to give, everything in the recap. And I want you to get all of the information. And also, if you check out the description below, I'm going to put a link in there to one of my brochures that will help you identify the imposter syndrome. Okay, so here we go. In episode 1, I gave you the characteristics of the imposter syndrome. 1, you're usually a highly successful professional. It's not limited to highly successful and professional women, but they typically have the imposter syndrome. 70% of everybody will have it, more women and minorities than the general population because of the societal messages that constantly tell us that we don't belong in this position and you're not as talented as your colleagues around you. Imposter syndrome. 3 main characteristics. 1, you don't feel as though you're enough. Everybody else around you is smarter, more talented than you are. You just don't seem to measure up. 2, your success is because of luck or some external um, factor. Maybe it's right, you were in the right place at the right time, or the team around you is um, you've gotten your success because of the teams that you've been associated with, not because of your hard work and dedication and your talent and your skills. Third element is that you feel like a phony inside, and because you do, you think at some point everybody's going to recognize that you are indeed a fraud or an imposter, and they're going to spread the word about you. So those are the 3 core elements. You don't feel as though you're enough. Your success is because you're lucky, and you're afraid everybody around you will soon discover and expose you as a fraud or an imposter. Some of the behaviors that the imposter syndrome will manifest, how it will manifest itself in your life, is that you develop these coping mechanisms or behaviors that help you navigate this feeling that you're not enough, right? So it could be that you are a perfectionist, or you're a procrastinator, or where you put your you wait until the very last minute to complete or start a project. The perfectionist is you everything has to line up perfectly. You try to be a superwoman where you're everybody's yes person. They just dump their work on you, and you will try to meet the needs of everybody around you, except you don't meet the needs that you have inside. A solo actor, you try to do everything on your own, or you try to be the expert where you have to have all of the answers before you can feel like you can get started or complete a project. And again, go back to the episodes, and you'll be able to get a fuller description of each of these things, the behaviors and the definition of the imposter syndrome. In this episode, I want to give you this tool that I've used over and over and over again that has helped me when I feel like I'm going into having an imposter moment, right? When I feel like I'm, not enough, I can stop myself and go through this process, right? And it helps me realize that I'm having an imposter moment, that this isn't my life, right? This isn't um, who I am. I'm just having a moment. And that's what you have to realize about the imposter syndrome. The imposter syndrome will try to make you believe that this is who you are, that you are not enough. All of us experience moments where we go into a new environment and we feel a little shaky. Normal, right? All of us will experience moments where we're in a crowd that we've never been around and we think, wow, they're really smarter than me. That should not make you shrink inside, right? You want to rise to the occasion. You have the confidence to rise to the occasion and to show up as your authentic self, share your skills, and learn from them as they will learn from you, right? So, in this, let me back up and say two things. Number one, you have to know that you have this limiting belief inside you that you're not enough, that your success is because you were lucky, and that you are afraid that others are going to expose you. You have to be willing to say, yes, this is how I'm feeling. For a long time, most of I built a successful career in TV news, but I never felt like I was enough. And so I took on these behaviors because I was trying to fill that hole inside me that said I wasn't enough. And I was always afraid someone was going to spot it. And I kept it to myself. I thought I was the only one that felt like this, when in fact, millions of people, millions of women experience the imposter syndrome. You are not alone. You are not alone. And so you have to be able to recognize the imposter syndrome and be willing to talk about it. There's no shame in it. The shame is in the cover up, when we don't talk about it, when we don't express to each other, yes, this is how I'm feeling. Are you feeling this way? Let me help you get past this moment. That's number one. And number two, the things that I'm talking to you about will take time. You're not going to go, oh, this is the imposter syndrome, and I'm going to get rid of it, right? In 2 or 3 sessions. It takes time. It took time for you to build up these behaviors as a reaction to your imposter syndrome. And it's going to take time for you to be able to quickly recognize them and then to snap out of them. This tool is going to help you, though. Remind you of who you are, remind you of your success, and that there is nothing to fear. So let's get started. I told you that I spent a great deal of time in TV news, nearly 40 years, right? My career was built on being able to write news stories, write reports, write assessments. Writing was the key to my success. But inside, one of my limiting beliefs was that I wasn't a good writer. Now, I don't know where I picked that up from. I think it's because, I'd write something and then I'd rewrite it, the perfectionism, right? Remember we talked about that. Always trying to get it perfect, and I'd rewrite it and I'd tweak it. And so in my mind, I started thinking, wow, you're not a good writer. If you were a good writer, you would be able to sit down and write it and let it go and it would be perfect. Now you know that that's not how anything is, right? We're always we always have a first draft. You always work on something and then you see where you can tweak it. That doesn't mean you're bad at what you're doing. It's normal. It's when we take it to the nth degree, when we become excessive about it and obsessive about it, that it's a problem. And that's where I had taken this whole idea that I was not a good writer. So I agonized over anything that I had to write. I struggled with it. I'd wait until the last minute. I'd only want to work on it by myself because I was afraid. I didn't want everybody to know that I struggled with writing, right? So I exhibit all the behaviors that I talked about in episode 2. Um, and so the bottom line was I believed that I wasn't a good writer. And nothing was going to shake me from that until I discovered this tool. So you want to grab a piece of paper and a pencil or pen or whatever. And I want you to divide that paper into 3 columns. And in the first column, I want you to label it limiting belief. What is the belief that you have about yourself that is holding you back? What is that belief? For me, it was that I was a poor writer. What is the belief that you have that stops you from going for the new position, that stops you from demanding the pay you deserve, the respect you deserve? What is that limiting belief that you hold in your heart that you don't tell anybody else about that is holding you back? Now, I've said this from the start of these episodes. It is it is critical that you are brutally honest with yourself because only you know what's going on inside your heart and your mind. And you have to be able to confront it. You have to be able to look it in the eye and call it out for what it is, a limiting belief, not the truth. It's just a belief that you have, that you are holding on to, that is holding you back. Now, limiting beliefs, you know how beliefs start. They start as a thought. And let me just say that every thought you have is not the truth. It's just a thought. Psychologists say you have, I've heard the number go from 50,000 to 60,000. The point is, you have thousands of thoughts every day. Some of them are wacky. Some of them are funny, right? Some of them are outrageous. Some of them are not true. But often we take that not true thought and we turn it into a belief. We believe it so strongly that it develops a toehold in our life. We believe it so strongly that we can't shake ourselves of it. So It stops you from moving forward. It's not true, it's just a belief you have. Okay, so in column 1, I want you to list your limiting belief, whatever it is. Column 2 now. What is it? What facts do you have that support that limiting belief? What things do you have that say, yes, that limiting belief is true? Using me again, I had to look at it and say, well, I have to write 2 or 3 drafts before I get it to where I want it. That's one reason why I thought I was a poor writer. I thought everybody, all the good writers, sit down and they write the copy or they write the story and voila, it's perfect. That was my thought. Those were what I thought the facts, the supporting evidence that I used to support my limiting belief that I was a poor writer. What is the evidence that you are using to support your limiting belief? What is it? Why do you say I'm not enough? Is it because you have poor skills? Is it because the first time you tried something, you failed at it? It didn't go exactly the way you wanted it to go? What is the evidence? What supports your limiting belief? What supports this idea that your achievements are because you're lucky? What supports that? And sometimes you have to think about this long and hard. You can't do this, as quickly as we're going through it now. As I said, you have to spend time really digging deep and identifying what is your limiting belief, and then what is the story you tell yourself, because that is what keeps the limiting belief alive. And we all tell stories about ourselves. We all have a story about what happened to us. So my story was that I can't sit down and just, write something and it be perfect the first time around. I have to go through a couple of drafts. It was a story I told myself. I convinced myself that that was true. What is the story that you're telling yourself that supports your limiting belief? And I want you to really think about it, and I want you to go deep in this. I want you to get it all out. I think 9 times out of 10, we have this stuff that's inside of us and it's deep. It's really deep. But we never spend the time to dig it up because it's uncomfortable to do. It doesn't feel good. You don't want to be reminded of your shortcomings, the shortcomings that you think you have. But in order to eliminate this limiting belief, in order to really determine the validity of this limiting belief, you got to get it all out. You got to get it all out. That's why I say that this process is going to take you a little bit of time. But boy, when the process is over, you will be able to combat your limiting beliefs. You will be able to snap out of your imposter moments when you have one. Be able to fight the negative talk that goes on in your mind. Okay, so back to the exercise. Now I want you to look at column 3. Column 3 should be, what are the facts? What is the reality of the situation? What is the reality of the situation? Using me again, I'm a poor writer. That was my limiting belief in column 1. In column 2, the support evidence I used to support my limiting belief was that um, I had to write several drafts before it was in before what my writing was in any shape to turn in. I couldn't just 1, 2, 3, bang it out and it's good to go. But the reality, now let's take a look at the reality. The reality is that I built a nearly 40-year career in TV news based on my ability to write. And I had a successful career. The reality is that I've won several awards because of my writing. Reality is that much of my career was built on evaluating the writing of others. The reality is that my reports and assessments and my stories were were um, were lauded. I got many compliments because of my writing. That was the reality. That was the reality. That was the cold, hard facts were right there on paper, and I couldn't ignore them. So, if that's the truth, if that's the reality, that I won awards, that I built a successful career based on my writing, then how true was that limiting belief? Could it be true? Could I be a poor writer and still build build the career I built based on writing? Could that be true? And what you're going to find out is that it's not true. The two things are in conflict. The limiting belief and the reality of the situation are in conflict because it's not true. That limiting belief is just a belief that you have held on to. It's not reality, it's just the belief that you have. And this exercise will show you reality versus the limiting belief. So, again, what is your limiting belief? What is the element, what is the evidence that you're using to support that limiting belief? What is the story you're telling yourself? And what's reality? So anytime you hit a I'm not enough moment, I'm not enough because whatever it is, you have to ask yourself, what is the evidence I'm using to support that belief? What is the evidence? What are the things that prove that limiting belief? And then what is reality? What is actually happening? Anytime you face a situation where you have negative self talk, that chatter is going on, you're not smart enough to be in this position. Well, what evidence do you have? What's reality? What's reality? You're going to find that what you have been telling yourself is a lie. And so you have to now that you have the evidence, now that you have the proof, now that you have the real deal, right? You have to begin to tell yourself a different story. You can no longer say you are not enough because of blah, blah, blah. You have to tell yourself a different story because you have the evidence, the facts, reality do not support your limiting belief. So I told myself I was a poor writer. I looked at the evidence I was using. And then I looked at my reality. And part of my reality was not just what was happening with me. Part of the reality is that no writer, even the best of the best, sit down and write one story and boom, it's perfect. That's not the way it is. Writers go through one draft and a second draft, and they may have their copy editor come in and take a look at it and give them suggestions, and then they tweak it a little bit more. Does that make them a bad writer? No. Does that make them, unworthy of their craft? No. They don't say to themselves, oh my God, I'm a poor writer. They don't say that. They say, I'm a good writer. I am crafting a story worthy of others to read and to take in. And that's what you have to do. What is the story you're telling yourself? Now, just earlier, I said that you have thousands of thoughts, and not all of them are true, right? You have to decide for yourself. What thoughts am I going to hold about myself that I'm going to believe? What is it I'm going to think about myself and believe? What is the story I'm going to tell myself? Using me again, I was a poor writer. I am a poor writer was my limiting belief. The evidence, I had to start and stop, start and stop. The reality is that I built a career on writing. So what is the story I had to tell myself? I had to start telling myself that I am a good writer. I am an excellent storyteller. I am successful based off of my writing foundation. People enjoy reading my stories. People are have a clear understanding when they read my story of what's going on. People could develop a call to action and took action based on the stories that I told. That's the story that I based upon the stories that I told. So now the story that I tell myself is that I'm a good writer. I'm an excellent writer. I go through rough drafts just like everybody else. But at the end of the day, I'm a good writer. I can communicate based on my writings, and I can get people to take action based on my writings. So, what is the story that you want to start telling yourself? What is the new story that you want to start telling yourself? The story that is closer to the reality of your situation. Now, don't get me wrong. I may have been a poor writer when I started. All of us start from somewhere. You don't wake up and be, voila, a success. Everybody, it takes practice. It takes hard work. It takes dedication and commitment. Don't let your limiting belief be something that was the old you, the 10-year ago you, the 20 years ago you. Don't let it be that. Tell yourself a different story. Remind yourself of the reality. Remind yourself of the good work that you do. Remind yourself of the successes that you've had. And own those successes. Look at the hard work that you put in and own what you've done. Tell yourself that you are successful because you work hard. You accomplish this because of your hard work, your dedication, your commitment, and point to the things that you actually sat down and did that support your success. This exercise, the more you do it, the easier it will become. So when a negative thought pops up in your mind, a limiting belief pops up in your mind that says you're not enough because of blah, blah, you'll be able to tell yourself a different story. No, that's a lie. You'll be able to say that quickly. That's a lie, and I'm not going to believe it. I choose to believe that I am a good writer, and I have the evidence to prove it. I have the reality, or as the young folks say these days, I have the receipts to prove it. That's what you want to do. When you have a limiting belief, stop it in its tracks, challenge it, confront it, and tell yourself the real story. This is going to help you build your confidence. This will help you if you can tell yourself a different story over and over and over and over again. Visualize yourself in your new story. Visualize yourself writing. In my case, I visualize myself writing and the successful outcome, really owning it and feeling it. You'll be able to stop the imposter syndrome. You'll be able to build your confidence. Your confidence will just naturally build because of what you're saying to yourself, because of the story that you are telling yourself. Your confidence will grow. Your self-esteem will grow. That feeling that you're not enough will slowly start to go away because you will realize you are more than enough. You're confident. You're able to show up as your authentic self. Why? Because that is the reality. You are not your limiting belief. That's a lie that you have been holding on to for a long time. And it's time to let it go. It's time to let it go and to replace it with a new story, a new positive, uplifting, empowering belief about yourself. You want to kill the imposter syndrome? You want to nip it in the bud? Go through this exercise. With every one of your limiting beliefs, confront it, challenge it, and you will find that you will be growing. You will be moving yourself closer and closer to whatever it is you want to achieve. You will be moving yourself closer to the person you want to become. Comment below on what resonated with you in this episode. Let me know if this tool is something that you think will be able to help you. And if you want to do a one-on-one conversation, please head over to my website, constancehowardllc.com, and you could book a one-on-one appointment with me there. You can also leave it in the comment section below. I would love to hear what resonated with you and what you are willing to try. What beliefs are you willing to challenge? Believe me, I've lived this, done this, and got a medal. It's really what helped me recognize the imposter syndrome in my life and to eliminate it in my life. And even when moments pop up, and they will, I'm able to knock them down very quickly. And that's what I want you to do. I want you to have imposter moments, not an imposter lifestyle. And I believe episodes 1, 2, and 3 will help you get to the point where you will never say, I'm not enough. You won't even think that. What you will think is the story that you tell about the new you and your new attitude. Now, before I sign off, I want you to hit the subscribe button and click the bell so you'll be notified when any new videos are posted. Thank you for your support, and I'll see you next time.